Hello, I'm Benton Jones, the Director of Art here at the Cape Cod Museum of Art, and I'd like to give you a virtual tour of this exhibition titled FIRSTS. It's an exhibition comprised of artworks from the Cape Cod Art Center members. It's a juried exhibition by artist Michael Giaquinto. There are 4 prize winners, and the amount of submissions for this exhibition were enormous. It was over 150 submissions for 33 spots, and the quality of work reflects the amount of outpouring of interest in this exhibition and the quality of artists at the Cape Cod Art Center. So I'm going to give you a tour around this exhibition and read some of the statements by the artists, but I hope you do come to the Cape Cod Museum of Art here in Dennis and see this exhibition for yourself, because there's nothing like seeing the artwork in person. We're going to start off with Kathy Edmonston. She's the Best of Show award winner, and come with me on the tour. This work is by Kathy Edmonston, titled Spring, Oil on Canvas. Kathy began her art journey in 2005 and now works in both pastel and oil. Her work often expresses the intimate place in the landscape or the dramatic edge in a still life. Her creative process has evolved over time, depending on her subject or goal. She typically creates an underpainting with texture, anything from dribbling acrylic paint in defined areas to applying grit mixed with a medium in others. Sometimes she uses cold wax or another medium to create texture and depth, often scratching back into the surface. She begins to apply pastels or oil paints in layers, responding to the texture and marks. Finding art as a personal expression has afforded me growth and great satisfaction. It has also connected me to a wonderful community of fellow artists. My goal is to continue this artistic journey with an open mind and heart to see where it leads me. This piece got Best in Show, and the juror was Michael Giaquinto. Congratulations. This piece is titled COVID by Lynn Wallen. It's an oil on canvas, and the dimensions are 48 inches by 36 inches. When I approached this painting, I didn't paint the realistic style that I usually do. It came about as a reaction to the events around us when the pandemic arrived in our country and changed everything around us. I prepared a large canvas because this was a larger-than-life event and began putting my emotions into the canvas with brushes, palette knives, and paint. The spelled-out word COVID formed the original shapes. I then used each instrument and the use of color, lines, shape, and value to describe what I was feeling and what I was hearing from people around me. Some of these feelings were fear, confusion, anger, sadness, loss, divisiveness, anxiety, emptiness, and frustration. As an artist, it is wonderful to be able to release our feelings onto the canvas or paper. It is my hope that the people who view this can feel some of this for themselves. This painting is titled Lavender Mist by Jane Eccles. It's oil on canvas and measures 24 inches by 36 inches. Jane says, "How does one begin to paint an abstraction on an all-intimidating blank canvas? This painting, Lavender Mist, was based on a smaller abstract pastel drawing that I found one day in my storage shelves. I liked the colors in the pastel and adapted them to my painting surface. Gradually, over a period of months between hard and soft edges, this painting evolved. I tried to preserve some of the pentimento from the original drawing and added some hard-edge geometric overlays to echo the rectangular frame. This process involved a careless, intuitive approach to the soft edge portions versus a careful deliberation in the hard edge overlays. As a student of art history, I constantly revisit the work of European and American artists no longer living for my inspiration. Accidentally, I ran across one of Jackson Pollock's early drip paintings titled Lavender Mist. Pollock's painting had no trace of lavender nor any hint of mist, but I thought it was a wonderful title and better suited to my painting. A grievous bit of theft on my part. This work is by Erin Donnellan Kroninger. It's titled Emerging, and it's oil on board with charcoal. My work seeks to capture the essential elements of each subject to evoke both a sense of energy and contemplation. My background as a graphic designer enables me to break down images to their fundamental shapes, revealing the simple essence of my subject. As I work, I build the surface up by applying multiple layers of oil paint, retaining traces of previous marks and colors while obscuring others. This approach creates a depth and a history which results in a complex and nuanced surface of color, harmony, and balance. The title of this painting, Emerging, was chosen because I painted this when it seemed we were all in the beginning stages of emerging out of the pandemic. It also speaks about how the shapes of the painting are beginning to reveal themselves. This work is called The Chanteuse and the Nightingale by artist Jody Schauberg. It's oil on canvas. After a successful 30-plus year career as an award-winning graphic designer, Jody returned to her first love of painting in 2014. Composition and how light affects form and color are the fundamentals she follows, creating paintings that evoke feelings of wonder at the beauty and diversity she sees all around in nature and in people, from the celebrated to the ordinary. What began as a life painting session, The Chanteuse and the Nightingale, evolved as a conceptual painting that recognizes the model Moselle Ardrolt and her talents as a jazz singer. With the loveliest sound of all songbirds, the nightingale symbolizes Moselle's marvelous jazz vocals. The distant view of low tide at dusk honors both the model's first name, Hebrew for drawn from the water, and acknowledges that both the jazz chanteuse and the nightingale share their gift with us after the sun goes down. This is a work by Julita Lucas. It is a print of a photograph on canvas board, and Julita says, "I am a photographer. Creating art is my lifelong focus. College photography classes, workshops, and seminars prepared me for work in the field of portrait and event photography in Chicago. However, my passion has always been and continues to be creative art photography. I am a juried artist member of the Cape Cod Art Center, also a member of the Sandwich Arts Alliance, and have exhibited my photographs across the country. 5 years as a wash ashore has given me a unique opportunity to share my creative visions. The province lands on the tip of Cape Cod, with its rolling dunes, marshes, and woodlands, is a most peaceful place. I enjoy exploring and photographing its various landscapes in all seasons and at all times of the day. There is a quality of light there rarely found elsewhere. Its magic creates a meditative state of mind, which I strive to portray in my photograph." This artwork is by Eve Stoddart, titled Playing with Pink, oil on canvas. My landscape painting springs from a deep love of the everyday natural world and from a commitment to conserving the natural environment. I paint the daily and hourly changes of familiar landscapes under the influences of light, season, and other atmospheric influences. Since moving to the Cape in the early 2019, I have mostly painted the cranberry bog, where I walk twice every day, both because it enacts the drama of color and light in its daily and monthly changes, and because it reflects the interaction between humans and nature in constructing our landscape. I became fascinated, especially by the shadows cast on the bog in the morning and the evening, by the shifting shapes of light and shadow on the already intriguing seasonal mutations in the colors of the cranberry plants and on the large panorama of the bog's sections between the sandbanks and the trees. This piece is titled Out to Sea by Lorinda Fakos O'Connor. It's pastel on paper. As a pastel artist, I strive to let simplified strokes of color and line create a path into a scene and moment in time. I push myself to capture the sense I feel from the landscape, as well as to create the up-close excitement of color, texture, and expression on the surface of my paper. This piece is by Kendra J. Conn, titled Sawtooth Range, Watercolor on Paper. I began my artistic career with undergraduate and graduate degrees in ceramic, and I worked in clay both in my studio and in the classroom for about 30 years. Over time, I began drawing and painting more. The materials were easier to transport and were easier on my body, and thus began my journey with watercolor and a graduate degree in drawing. Watercolor is an amazing medium. It has a mind of its own and can run off and meddle with other colors, appear in translucent veils, or blossom into beautiful configurations. As an artist, one is the director of its symphony of color and form, bringing it into a unique vision. Although initially I worked mostly with portraits, I began to consider my surroundings, and I thought about how I could portray nature in a way that was distinctively mine. Walking in the mountains of Idaho, I was enthralled by their strength, their musculature, and amazing color, and I couldn't wait to paint them. This painting is by Amy Kaufman. It's titled Ocean View, and it's acrylic on canvas. Amy Kaufman's inspiration for Ocean View comes from her living right on the water in the Cape. The vivid colors in her paintings are warm and alluring, inviting you to respond to her art. Kaufman always enjoys the artistic journey, from the moment she feels inspired and through the piece's evolution to completion. Painted from observation and imagination, the final outcome is not planned, but rather becomes transformed into its final expression. She likes to depict the layering of the piece through texture, brushstrokes, and the underlying colors. Through her uniquely varied aesthetic techniques, each time you look at her art, you see more details and surprises. Please visit Kaufman's website, kaufmanart.com, for more information. This painting is by Emelia Friend, titled School, Oil on Canvas. Emelia Friend is an artist born and raised in Cape Cod, who growing up was inspired by the local gallery and museum scene. In this piece titled School, she chose to riff on the favored beach imagery often seen painted on the Cape. She also was playing with materiality and stencil use. This piece combines humor with a modern take on the Poseidon as an archetypal old swimmer and a reference to the Cape fishing industry seen in the fish heads. This piece won second place in this exhibition by juror Michael Giaquinto. This is a painting by Patti Buss. It's titled Vase of Flowers on Quilt-Covered Table. It's mixed media on canvas. Since retiring from teaching 8 years ago, I have embarked on this journey of creating art with wonder and enthusiasm, mostly self-taught. Taking an occasional online course, my passion has developed for creating pieces of contemporary design and abstract realism utilizing mixed media. Working on both canvas and paper, in acrylics, oil sticks, pastels, and collage, my art consists of multiple layers with bursts of bright color and bold lines, conveying a sense of my surroundings, informed mostly by nature, people, and memories. I am an intuitive artist, allowing the painting to evolve and emerge as I thoroughly enjoy the process. It is my intent to scatter joy and add some happiness to our world. I live on Cape Cod, escaping winters with my husband Steve, traveling to our little beach villa in Saratoga, Florida. You can find Patti on Instagram at Patti Buss Art. This work is by David Campbell. It's untitled. It's using Portuguese pink marble. David Campbell is a stone carver by trade and 3D design artist by circumstance, which began silversmithing as a teenager, later moving to wood carving, landscape design, and then stone carving. His interest in stone stuck with him as he found satisfaction in pushing the hard and sometimes rough material in a direction it did not want to go. He refers to it as a stone manipulation. This piece is Portuguese pink marble. After working with it for a commissioned sculpture, he realized if he carved it thin enough, light would pass through it, giving it a pleasant glow. Sometimes inspiration comes from a mechanical challenge, and the stone dictates the final design. In stone carving, there are no mistakes, only the stone moving you in a different direction. This work is by Jackie Kaufman. It's titled The Inner Life of Life Inside, made with pastel on paper. The Inner Life of Life Inside, a pastel from my Floaters series, speaks to the dilemma of distancing in an already isolated world. Rendered during the height of COVID, images of shells, feathers, chilies, ride thermals of their own making to self-assigned berths high above. The prospect of interaction among them seems slim as the blaze of dusk turns to night, as the noise of youth slides toward the hum of years. But while each object hews to its separate path, together they form a picture of an easel on the move. Chili peppers reference the seamlessness of culture and cuisine in northern New Mexico, where, until 4 years ago, I spent the previous 17 years. The feathers derive from the extended stays in Alaska, British Columbia, and Colorado, where nature vies with high culture for an artist's heart. In turn, the mussels and scallop shells evoke the artist's upbringing as a Bostonian, whose wanderlust also brought her full circle to the outer Cape after 25 years of roaming the Southwest and far north, but where a certain virus this year kept her from going out much at all. This piece is by Kendra Marie Dangora. It is called Flame Brigand, and it's made from ceramics. It won first place in this exhibition from Juror Michael Giaquinto. I'm a graduate of Massachusetts College of Art as well as Aquinas College. I loved Mass Art. It's a phenomenal school. I've grown up taking care of children. I'm the eldest of 4, the oldest cousin on both sides, and I've been babysitting since I was 9. It makes sense. I am a teacher. I love what I do. I came across an opening for a preschool teacher in Brooklyn, Mass. years ago. It was one of the best things that ever happened to me. I am now the art teacher for St. Joseph's School in Fairhaven and St. Stanislaus School in Fall River. I also currently teach art for all mediums to all ages out of my home studio. I am the illustrator for the children's book, 3 Ducks and a Goose. I also drew illustrations for Matilda. It's the tale of a donkey whose life changes for the better. I have a deep respect for nature. I love the organic treasures I find on a walk or hike, the way clouds dance and swirl, creating colors and layers. I get excited watching things grow in my garden. I believe all of this reflects my creations. I have participated in a large number of regional shows, auctions, and fairs throughout my years as a professional artist. Galleries as far as California have exhibited my sculpture clay works as well as my pencil drawings. This work by Maxine Raymond is titled Branching Out. It's soft pastel on textured board. My 2 pieces selected for this exhibit by juror Michael Giaquinto are strikingly different in terms of texture, color, and composition, resulting in varied atmosphere and emotional impact. Branching Out employs the use of dribbled house paint for underpainting and taped off areas to maintain smooth surface, resulting in the creation of chosen areas of texture. The composition is simple in use of the diagonals and forms, yet complex in the execution of the textural branches. Although I've used a range of values, the overall feeling is soft and subdued in this cool and neutral color. Earth, Wind, and Fire uses intense, warm tones, subtle mark making, and pastel layering. The composition is a straightforward, high horizontal line, drawing the viewer back from the foreground to the tree line. Emphasis on the subtle color changes in the field created by the use of a range of hot tones and culminating with the stronger tree forms juxtaposed to the neutral sky. My hope is that it evokes an ethereal feeling of intensity housed in calm. No matter these differences, I've come to notice that most of my landscapes tend to be depictions of quiet places. This work is by Phyllis Charles. It's called Bluefoot Boogie. It's acrylic, pencil, and stencils with pumice on canvas. I was born in Los Angeles, California, but have lived the larger part of my life in the Caribbean and South America. 10 years ago, a friend encouraged me to try plein air painting. Hated the plein air, but loved the painting part. I painted fairly realistically for 5 years, but was seduced by the magic of the toys available to mixed media artists. I abandoned reality to play with collage, stencils, markers, pencils, crayons, gels, pastels, and sprays. Animals have been the focus of my ongoing series, Like Species, a title inspired by Miss Piggy. My animals are closely related to their surroundings, and in some cases merge with the background. I chose poses that are assertive with a gaze directed towards the viewer. I hope that the viewer will engage with my creatures and will find my paintings provoking and sometimes amusing. This is a work by Joan Appel. It's titled Curtains, and it's oil on canvas. I am both a professional musician and artist. I experience life as having order as well as disorder through sound and sight. I create art along with music. The execution of the painting, therefore, becomes a personal performance, as were my song recitals when I was singing professionally. The one difference being, I am not interpreting someone else's poetry. I'm creating my own in color and shape. Printmaking and oil painting are my primary forms of artistic expression. Recently, I have become fascinated by the interaction of light reflections on and through glass or water, and the challenge of depicting this with oils. My pieces are alternately impressionistic and semi-realistic or abstract manifestations. I do not like being categorized in any specific genre or medium. I am an explorer. This work is by Lori Metha. It's titled An Open Book. It is made with oil on board. It won 3rd place in this exhibition from juror Michael Giaquinto. Familiarity is comfortable. When a fond memory is triggered by an image we see, our own personal narrative often emerges. The familiarity of gestures and recognizable nuances can be soothing. When choosing what subject matter to paint, I think about moments that might be relatable to many, but within these images, there's often a simple gesture or the way a tendril of hair falls that will remind a viewer of a something or someone very personal. When this happens, the painting feels more complete. My process begins with an accurate drawing where I simplify the image into straight-edged shapes. This method helps me simplify the information, and it is often during this stage that I might exaggerate a gesture or nuance. I then use a wash of paint to map out values. When I apply the paint, all decisions have been made, and I'm able to paint freely. This work is by Joy George. It's titled Looking In, Oil on Canvas. I often find viewing forgotten things in typically uninteresting interior spaces can inspire me. It might be an abandoned room, hallway, stairway, attic, or cellar. Or in the case of this painting called Looking In, a vintage toilet and an old-fashioned bathroom. I think the bowl has quite a beautiful shape, and the hard white porcelain reflects so much light and color, especially when seen in the bright daylight from a nearby window. We often take for granted the architecture, art, and design represented in the simplicity of some of the least precious items we live with on a daily basis. I hope that this everyday utilitarian object, nestled in what could be considered a mundane interior, might completely surprise someone when looked at from my perspective, and that my painting invites the viewer to take time to look at their daily surroundings and find something curious and beautiful. This artwork is by Judy Miller Bailey. It's untitled, and it's photography. Other than a basic film photography class at Hunter College High School in Manhattan, of which I remember the smell more than anything, I have had no formal training. After moving to Boxford, Mass. At age 40, I got back into photography. Since the fall of 2008, I have been juried into Art Association shows over 100 times. And in 12 years of shows, I've won 20 awards. In addition to traditional matted and framed pieces, I've been featuring some of my photos printed on wood and metal. My stepson describes my style as close-ups of things that would otherwise be considered unattractive. A friend says my photographs make real life more real than real life. One award juror said my work shows the visible, but hints at the invisible. In another, that it's playful, thoughtful, and provoking. I enjoy people seeing things through my eyes in a slightly skewed new way. The quote Judy likes is, "Blessed are they who see beautiful things in humble places where others see nothing," by Camille Pissarro. This piece is by JoAnne Chittick, titled Clouds Along the Coast of Norway. It's watercolor, oil pastel, and water-based crayon. Traveling on a ship along the coast of Norway, I worked quickly to sketch the variety of shapes and patterns in the often monochromatic landscape. One morning, with a promise of a sunny day to come, indeed a special occurrence in September in Norway, heavy white masses of clouds hung over the low mountains, embracing them as if they didn't want to leave, and stating that they are very much as important as the land, sea, and bright sky. Their shapes were so graphic and strong that I couldn't resist capturing them in a watercolor sketch, which I developed later into this painting. In this watercolor, I used no gray paint. Rather, combinations of alizarin crimson, phthalo green, raw umber, indigo, ultramarine, and cobalt blues. They comprise the various neutrals of the scene. Water-based crayons and oil pastels added in layers enhance particular areas. This is a work by James C. Varnum. It's called Ronin. It's watercolor and ink on paper. I am an experimental watercolor painter. In my work, I have always been conscious of creating a dichotomy. Soft V hard edge, straight V curved mark, warm V cool tones, painted V blank space utilizing color and line. Here is an example of my experimentation and exploration of pigment, texture, and line. Ronin was created by pouring pigments onto paper, then covering with plastic wrap, manipulated to create texture. I limited my palette and let the blending occur on the surface. I found the contours in the dry, textured pigment and followed them with markings in ink. I added pink and textured it with bubble wrap, then poured silver alcohol inks to form ribbons. To balance the composition, I added the curved lines containing geometrics to mimic the textures and shapes found in the painted surfaces. A Ronin was a wandering feudal samurai with no allegiance to lord or master. This work is by Mary Jo Beswick, titled Punch and Judy. It's mixed media and collage on paper. My artwork celebrates life and the power of possibilities. It is internally driven, intuitively created, and spontaneous in nature. It often expresses a sense of whimsy, which is not my intention, but a natural aspect of my inner self. This piece began by painting marks on paper using a pine bow. I had no intention except to play with the marks and different materials. I responded to the active space of marks by adding static black shapes, editing and dividing the active space. Then, from my library of previously created mixed media papers, I chose papers to add color, direction, and more shapes. At some point, Punch and Judy popped out, and I added details to support that idea. My process embraces the unknown like a game of stimulus, response, where in a visual conversation, the form and content often develop at the same time. This work is by Rita Colintanio. It's titled Embedded. It's a digital collage. Rita Colintanio is a digital artist and photographer living on Cape Cod. After retirement as a public school art teacher in 2009, she immersed herself in painting and photography and joined the Cape Cod Art Center Camera Club, where she achieved the highest rank in competition. That led her interest in iconography and digital art. Her style is diverse, focusing on painterly abstractions of her own iPhone photography. Rita has won many awards for her digital art both locally, nationally, and internationally. In 2017, Rita was interviewed by Chronicle TV magazine after winning Best in Show in the Cape Cod Art Center first online international digital art exhibition. Her image, Embedded, was born of the feelings of being in limbo, not being able to go forward with one's life, of escaping the feelings of entrapment and limited choices. This was a common feeling during the pandemic for many people. This is a work by Anne Giuliani titled Encaustic Wave. No man ever steps in the same river twice, a quotation from the Greek philosopher Heraclitus, born in 544 BC. The meaning? It's not the same river, and he's not the same man. And Anne says he had it right. The analogy applies to me when I walk the same beach so frequently at different times and seasons. I'm acutely aware that the wind and tides change, and my perception of that change is always refreshingly different. This image is an attempt to capture that moment when a wave is flowing. The moment is frozen in time and encased in wax forever, to be revisited. But I dare say that you'll never encounter the image the same way tomorrow as you did today. This work is by Wendy C Smith. It's titled First One In. It's pastel on paper. I've been fortunate to call Cape Cod my home for the last 40 years. They say, paint what you love. I love this beautiful peninsula, so my favorite subjects to paint are landscapes and seascapes of the Cape. I paint with oils or pastels in my studio or en plein air. For the past 2 years, I've enjoyed painting waves with pastels. I took my reference image for this painting at Nauset Beach. I thought it fitting to submit this painting to the FIRSTS exhibition because it was actually my very first attempt at painting waves back in 2019. I pulled this wave study out of my drawer of old paintings and decided to work on it again with my more experienced hand. So glad I did. Thank you, juror Michael Giaquinto, for accepting my painting in this lovely exhibition. This work by Peggy Richard is titled Rolling In. It's acrylic on canvas. I'm grateful that nature's wonder, mystery, and metaphor consistently inspire my work. In this painting, Rolling In, I am attempting to visually capture the power, energy, movement, and rhythm of a wave segment in this wall of water painting. Water might compel us to dive in order to feel the life-giving energy, or to become immersed or submerged, or to simply let go and ride the wave and enjoy the natural connection. One practical challenge for me was to create a composition with strong shapes and values to help emphasize the dichotomy that water may represent. The dark shapes might be danger below the surface, while the lighter, dancing droplets seem to escape the tremendous force of a huge wave rolling onto shore. This work is by Tina Watson. It's titled Marsh View, acrylic on canvas and it's a diptych. I am a plein air artist working in acrylics and encaustic painting. I attended Endicott College, Boston Museum School, and Massachusetts College of Art. My goal is to inspire those who see my work and want to look more carefully at the world around us. My subject matter is nature, whether it is traditional or abstracted landscapes. Capturing the light is everything. I find beauty in unusual places and want to share it with others. This work is by Larry Folding, called Log Jam, Watercolor on Paper. As an artist, I'm constantly challenging my technical abilities to compose paintings that both create mood and awaken emotion. I approach paper with large, dominant color washes, using the largest brushes possible. Then I work down to the finer details in the foreground and around the center of interest. Capturing the Cape's light, especially in the spring and fall when the air is clear, is something I continually endeavor to do. The light is ever-changing. Long shadows form and move endlessly as your brain and camera's eye try to absorb as much information about the landscape as possible. One time light may be shining in the face of a boy fishing from a dock in Orleans, or shadowing a boat making its way to port in Provincetown, or backlighting a marsh in Harwich. The light invites you into the painting. This work is by Robert Richard. It's titled Rescued Greyhound, New Beginnings, made from wood. A little background of the artist Robert Richard, so that you may understand what has inspired him to create the Rescued Greyhound. Robert is a self-taught wood sculptor whose passion for creating both the human figure and stylized pieces displaying the beauty of nature. His love of nature and the beauty nature creates in wood is a major driving force in what he does. Robert has his work displayed in homes in Japan, France, Germany, Italy, Canada, and the United States. One of his major pieces is on display in the Peace River Botanical and Sculpture Gardens in Punta Gorda, Florida, where they list him as one of the 12 internationally renowned artists on display in their gardens. Robert's inspiration for this piece was brought about by the Greyhound Rescue Program, in which greyhounds are trained by specially selected and trained inmates at Hardy Correctional Institute Work Camp near Wauchula, Florida, and by inmate trainers in Central Florida Reception Center in Orlando. This gives both the greyhounds and the inmates a new beginning in their life. This work is by Mary Felton. It's called Take a Bow, and it's charcoal on paper. My drawing, Take a Bow, is the third installment of a series of drawings inspired by a performance of the Currier and Ives skaters in Portsmouth, New Hampshire. I took the photo reference in December of 2019 during the Christmas celebration at the Strawberry Bank History Museum. What attracted me instantly was the lighting, the shadows that were created by the skaters as they whirled and glided to classical Christmas carols was a pure delight. The spotlight made long and dramatic shadows that showed up spectacularly on the white ice. I really loved the shapes as they ended with a bow. My work varies in the amount of detail I pursue. There's almost none of this in this drawing, like the others in this series. And for good reason. I felt it just wasn't needed. It was the design of the shadows on the ice that I wanted to showcase, and I feel it works quite well. Even though the skaters themselves blend into the background, you still know what you're looking at. Charcoal is the medium I work in exclusively, and working in black and white has its challenges. Not every subject lends itself to this medium, so when I find something that has the contrast I seek, it is worth pursuing. I hope you enjoy this drawing as much as I did in creating it. Thank you. So this concludes the tour of the first exhibition at the Cape Cod Museum of Art. It's up until August 1st, so please come and visit the exhibition yourself. We'd love to see you. The museum is open Wednesday through Saturday from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. and again on Sunday from noon to 4 p.m. The exhibition is really wonderful. I hope you enjoyed the tour, and I look forward to more collaborations with the Cape Cod Art Center. Take care.